Hi, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. Um, Two words summarise the approach that I and Labor would take to the NDIS and the broader disability sector. Two words are restore trust. The current coalition government has really taken the NDIS away from its true objectives. So I'm looking forward to a question and answer session, and I will try and pick up some of the comments in the chat as I go. Listen, I've listened to the small parties talk. They can basically say whatever they want, but there's only two parties who are going to form a government, the current LNP or Labor. What we're going to do is put people with disability back at the centre of the scheme. We believe fundamentally in co-design. I was one of the people who helped design the original NDIS, and I think that since I've stopped being leader of the Labor Party after 2019 election and come back to disability, I'm appalled at how it's gone out of direction, and the voice of people with disability and their representatives are not sufficiently included in the current government. What we would do is publish data so the scheme can be properly monitored, evaluated, interrogated. We'll identify gaps in the current evidence base. We'll bring people together. That's what I used to do as a union rep, and I believe in the power of advocacy. We'll increase the number of people with disability in the agency, the National Disability Insurance Agency, both the executive and the board. In addition, we will bring together the states and get them to not backslide on their responsibilities. We'll strengthen the disability services sector with a review of NDIS pricing, markets and compliance. We want to have a workforce strategy. Within the first 100 days, I'd bring together all the TAFEs and unis and look at how we encourage people to work in the sector, both young people, people with disability themselves, and older people looking to retrain. We'll also make sure that people working in the sector are paid appropriately. I do intend to pause the changes to the Morrison government's current supported independent living proposals. We think whilst it's not a big proportion of participants, it is a significant proportion of the payments, but most importantly, it's all about choice and control. We want to investigate the underspend in the disability accommodation area. We think that the government's designing a scheme which stops people getting the resources that they're promised. We intend to make, in the first 100 days, if we got elected, we would blitz the waiting lists at the AAT. I think it is a complete, utter disgrace that the way that people get their packages is through a decision of the AAT. You shouldn't need a lawyer to get a government support package. I think but NDIS is part of the picture. It's a very big part of the picture. But what's happened is increasingly under the coalition government has become a sort of the only lifeboat in the ocean, so everyone swims towards it. We need to reform the ILC grants so that we can support disability organisations, provide services for people beyond the NDIS. We're going to reform the disability employment services. Also, I want the state governments, and if I become minister and Labor gets elected, we're going to make the states do more in the education space than they're currently doing. I would much rather have a question and answer session here. People have been raising the issue of age discrimination. It should be your disability that determines your care, not your age. I think, though, that the solution might be in the first place to help the aged care sector have a loading for people with disability. I'm just trying to go through the chat room questions, but I know you've got a set format, but I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not going to promise, 40 billion here and 20 billion there, because frankly, that's just BS. What I want to do is, the money's there. What I want to do is make sure that people with disability aren't demonised. The current government always talks about a crisis in funding. What I want to actually do is recognise that spending in disability is an investment. The major barrier for disability in this country is not a person's disability. It's a lack of money and a lack of power. I don't have a deficit view of disability. I have a positive view. And I think that if you invest in people, then you get much better outcomes. So I'm going to conclude my statement here. I'm not going to sort of just pluck numbers out of the air. What I want to do is make sure that we can restore trust in the scheme.